Welcome to the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, alongside of John Marcario of the Connection newspapers, and the Lake Braddock girls soccer team joining us here. 3 senior members of the girls soccer team just won the state championship and brought their second title home here to Northern Virginia in the last 2 years, back-to-back titles for these young ladies here. We've got Kat Weiler to John's left, Lauren Fleming, and Katie Dye. All 3 girls headed to play collegiately, and you'll find out later in the show, Braddock has a track record of putting a lot of girls into the next level. We're going to talk about that with these young ladies here. We're going to talk about what it took to get to that second consecutive state championship trophy, and we're going to pick their brains. But before we do that, we want to thank the folks that make this show possible, and of course we're talking about CCI Screen Printing at 703-978-0257. And Triple Edge Lacrosse, the endless summer of lacrosse at www.tripleedgeblacks.com. All right, guys, so first of all, we want to thank you guys for joining us. We know it has been a roller coaster of a week. We were just getting a chance to talk a little bit about what the last week's been like. You guys missed your prom, then you got a prom back. We'll talk a little bit about how that transpired. But before we get to what you guys recently just accomplished, which was a 2-1 overtime victory over Cox from down in Virginia Beach for the back-to-back titles at Lake Braddock, we want to show the folks at home exactly what it took to get through the regular season. We're going to ask you guys about a couple of these games. You guys start off with Oakton, and you beat them 3-2, and then a tie with Yorktown. You guys took a difficult loss to Centerville, and I want to talk to you guys about that now that we've got that up. Looking at Centerville, it was a difficult loss. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about a lot of wins, but when that happens to a team, Kat, we'll start with you. You take a tough loss like that. How does a team rebound from that and get back to getting to the state championship level?
Well, it was the beginning of the season, so Liz Pike was kind of just like molding us and seeing like where to put players in like certain positions. So I think like once we get down to playoffs, it's all set.
And they did get to the playoffs. They did quite well in the playoffs. Let's jump back into that regular season schedule and get past that pesky Centerville loss. We know that that's one we won't talk about too much, guys. You guys did advance farther than the Wildcats, and you did get the state championship trophy. Lee Woodson's a team that a lot of people are talking about for next year. T.C. Williams. West Springfield is a team you guys got a chance to beat in the regular season. Lauren, let me ask you, in the regular season, a 2-1 victory over West Springfield, what did you guys learn about the Spartans in that matchup?
They were an excellent team. We were just working the ball around them, trying to keep like 1-2 passes and just keep it going and just work as a team.
Laurel Pastor is a heck of a player on that team. You guys are all familiar with the girls from the northern region. A lot of you guys all play club soccer together. And as we talk a little bit about how we rounded out the regular season here, you guys beat Annandale 6-0 after beating West Potomac 8-0 to close out the regular season before the tournament. Katie, what kind of confidence did that give you guys going into the district tournament?
I think 6-0 was our, that's the most goals we've scored in the season. So that was, a way to end it really greatly. And we just had a lot of confidence after that, and going into district, it was great.
Kat, you talked about Liz Pike, the coach at Lake Braddock. We're going to learn a little bit more about Liz later on in the show and what she's been able to do with the program. And as you guys approached the playoff schedule, you guys started off with Lee in the district tournament, knowing that this was the first step to getting back to the state championship game. What was that like as you guys went through Lee? You guys did lose in the Patriot District final, and then you also lost to Centerville in the Northern Region final. That's the second consecutive year you guys have lost in the region final and won the state. After those title games that you guys lost, how were you guys able to rebound from that? I mean, you talked about Liz kind of setting you guys up early in the season, and then, at that point, you guys are kind of supposed to be solid at where you are. I know you missed a couple of games and you were injured, but as a team, did you guys worry at all going through the rest of the postseason?
I think we were a little nervous, but I think like maybe losing those games were kind of good because then we wanted it even more, so we worked harder and stuff.
Katie, now take me through the Stonebridge PK game. If you don't win that game, you don't get as far as you did. I mean, back-to-back PK games, but that one kind of started all. What was going through the team through overtime and then PKs, knowing that this could be it for you seniors?
Yeah, the seniors really pulled it together at the end there. We had the huddle right before our PKs. We knew we did not want to lose that game. We did not want to lose our season, and we wanted to keep going. And I've never been that nervous to take a PK in my life, and I think Kat can say the same. But I just had to make it at the end, and at the end we pulled through.
Let's show that postseason schedule just one more time, because if you weren't nervous enough in the PK victory over Stonebridge, you had another chance to get nervous just in the next game. Robinson, a 4-3 victory in PKs as well. What the heck is up with you guys in these PK games? I talked to Caitlin Landsman after the Robinson game, and Lauren, she said, I love my teammates, but if they do this to me one more time, I'm going to really have something to say to them. What's that like, though? You guys obviously you're all well-rounded players. You can play defense and offense, but a goalie's all by themselves. What are some things that Caitlin would mention to you guys during those games?
She was just trying to pump us up, just give it all that we had the last couple minutes, and just just keep talking to us and just stay positive, but be assertive and all that stuff.
Well, speaking of being assertive, Lake Braddock has certainly been assertive over the years since the state tournament has started years back. We got a graphic we want to show the folks at home. Since 1984, you guys in the state now, as you can see, the teams that have competed in the state. This is probably news to you guys too, because you guys probably don't crunch these numbers like us nerds do. Lake Braddock has 8 finals berths. They've won the title 5 times. That has tied West Springfield. So you guys, with the win this year, tied West Springfield for the most state titles in the history of the tournament. 6 berths for the Spartans, and then Robinson and Woodson each have 5. They're tied there for 3rd place with 5 berths. Woodbridge as well with 5 berths, but they've only won it once. If you look, the interesting thing is, and we've talked about the northern region being one of the strongest areas in this state for girls soccer. Look at Kellum there. They're the only team from the beach that's ever won a state title since 1984. Now that you guys have been able to kind of see what you know what your program's about. You guys know about the tradition. Let's talk a little bit about what Liz Pike has been able to do to instill tradition into you guys. Kat, let's start with you. You've been around for a while with the program. Coming in as a freshman to now, what has Liz done to kind of bring you along through the program, and what have you learned about being a Bruin at Lake Braddock?
Well, it's mostly she puts a lot of leadership roles on the seniors. So I think throughout the years, the seniors have really helped the lower classmen get pumped up and stuff and ready to play. And Liz playing for state championship team when she was in high school, I think she knows the positions we're in too. So she knows where we need to be mentally.
Lauren, wanted to ask you kind of along the same lines. You've been there for a while, and the state title game is something you guys are obviously used to. Throughout the season, though, knowing that that's a place you guys want to get to, and obviously having the program been there a lot, is it pressure? Does it feel like you guys are supposed to be there? What's the feeling knowing that you guys are entering another postseason and knowing that maybe you're supposed to be there?
It was just a goal, I guess, that we had set from the beginning of the season, that we really wanted to go for it again, to state repeats. So it was just a goal that we were looking for, and we just worked really hard during the season as a team, and just worked our way to it.
Katie, was there any point during the season that you thought you couldn't win the state title? I mean, Stephanie Hilton, your all-pro, all-world defender, out all year at the torn ACL, lost real bad early in the season to Centerville, who's considered one of the top teams in the whole entire region. At what point in the season, if there was one, where you kind of stepped back and said, might not be able to repeat this year?
You know what? It was after the Centerville game. Kat and I bet you Lauren has never even lost a game 5-0, and we were shocked. And after that, we were just what is going on? And we didn't really know what was going to happen, but we bounced back and ended up doing great.
Speaking of bouncing back and doing great, here comes the Kat Weiler story. This young lady right here, headed to Pittsburgh, was out for 5 games this year during the season at different points. You didn't play in the region final. You did not play in the first round of the state tournament. The second game of the state tournament, you played about 10 minutes there towards the end of the game, sparingly in and out, and finally got in the final and had a heck of a performance, by the way. We're going to talk about your first goal, too. I want to really pick your brain about that one. Kat, walk us through the injury and what it was like. Tell us what the injury was and what it was like to not be able to play in those games.
Well, it was at practice one day on a Friday, and I was just we were playing defense versus offense, and when I kicked a ball, I felt something tweak in my muscle. and I've never done anything like this, like strained or pulled a muscle, so I didn't really know how to deal with it. So I'd like try to play on it, and I think that was kind of a mistake. But I mean, I could run and stuff on it, so I thought it's good enough to play on. So.
It was an injury to her right quadriceps, rather. It would swell up to the size of about a half a baseball off of her leg. So she's playing it down a little bit right now, but she was often injured, and she would get in there and really gut it out. And in the state championship game, it was a scoreless game at the half against my alma mater, Cox High School. And go ahead, guys, you beat the Falcons. I'll have to. There you go. But I guess coming in the second half, and Coach said that you were kind of tugging at her shirt, hey, get me in, get me in, get me in. Getting in the second half, and then walk us through your goal. Your goal, by the way, for those folks that were not there, broke open a scoreless game, and I think it was about the 45th minute, somewhere in that range. A left-footed volley from about 35 yards out that cleared, actually, it's been proven, the tallest goalkeeper in the history of goalkeepers. From Cox. Talk a little bit about your left-footed volley and walk us through that shot.
Well, Liz is nagging us to keep shooting every game. Like, we don't take enough shots. So, I mean, the ball, it was a perfect opportunity. There was space, and a ball just popped out of the box. So, took a shot.
A hell of a shot from about 35 yards out, and the goalkeeper for Cox, Kristen Carden, is headed to Virginia Tech. She's about 6'1" is what they have her listed at. I think she's a bit taller than that, and scary looking, if I might add, as well. Cleared her diving fingertips, so heck of a goal. And then in the overtime, Lauren, walk us through your goal, the game winner, what you saw Kat having the assist on that.
Well, I saw Kat down. She took it down to the goal line, and I just saw the opportunity, so I called for a slot back pass, and it was a perfect pass, and then I just took it and it went in.
Now, Kat, after your goal, Cox came back, tied it up 1 minute later. What was going through your minds and your teammates' minds at that? And then in the first overtime, I mean, Liz, I was looking over the sideline. She kind of stepped back and let all the seniors in the huddle. What were you guys telling your teammates to try to get them focused before the first overtime began?
Well, I think we knew that we had to we kind of laid back after the first goal. We're like, okay, we can take a little rest. But I think once they scored again, 2 minutes later, it was kind of like, all right, we need to stay we need to pick up our energy the whole game. So during the huddle, we just told everyone do we want this enough to go out in this 100-degree weather and run for however long it would take to get another goal.
And you think about that, that's something that we haven't actually mentioned, and you didn't really see it show up in any of the stories that were written about it. It was just in the 90-degree range the entire weekend, and down in the south, it's a bit more humid down there. I'm from that area, so I know it can get brutal, and it was on both days when you guys played in the semis and then in the finals. Cox was using a strategy where they'd come off and they'd have sponges, sponged all over their head. How did you guys, Katie, I'll ask you, how did you guys deal with the heat and really try to stay hydrated and stay in that?
Well, Liz had to take me out because I was seriously dying. We're all in shape, but it was so darn hot. And our trainer was really helpful on the sideline, and she had, buckets of ice water and towels like that, and so that was a good way to cool off, but it was really hot.
Lauren, talk a little bit about Emily Berry. I'm not sure where you're on the field in the 73rd minute, but Cox player had a wide open shot to the goal, and there was little Emily. She headed the ball away. She was on the goal line. It was guaranteed to go in. She's done that several times this year. What was going through your mind if you saw that shot, and how big has she just been all year long making those saves? It seems like at least once a game for the games I've covered for them.
Yeah, she's done that multiple times, saved a couple shots for us, and I just knew when she was there that she wasn't going to let it in, and because she had the heart to that she wanted the state championship too. So I just knew if she was there, it wasn't going to go in.
All right, speaking of wanting state championships, Liz Pike has wanted and gotten a lot of those. Let's show the folks at home exactly what Liz Pike has done by the numbers in her years. And there she is at the bottom right corner of your screen. 8 seasons, 5 trips to the state tournament, 3 state titles, 3 region titles, 4 Patriot District titles, and 32 players playing in Division I soccer. And we've got 3 young ladies here with us that are going to be playing at the next level, starting with Kat. Kat, you're going to be playing at Pittsburgh, Lauren at Christopher Newport, and Katie Dye will be playing at James Madison University. Going to a school that is a girls' soccer factory, if you will, if we call it that, to go to the next level. what comes with that? The scouting that's coming down from different levels, and you guys had, I think, of your 20 players, maybe 19 and a half of you had Division I scholarships this year. I mean, it's ridiculous. Every year you guys are a factory. What's that like? Is it competitive just to be able to even get on the field?
Yeah, like we go through club soccer too, which is like the basis of where all the recruiting takes place. And it's really nerve-wracking. We start like from our sophomore year, we like pick schools, make a list, and start like emailing coaches, and they start watching our games. And then junior year, it's the biggest time, and I don't know, it's one of like, I must say that during that time, soccer was kind of like really stressful.
Right.
Playing games because we had all those coaches watching, so we're like, I have to get into school.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but once you finally make your decision, it's a relief. And
Well, same question to you two guys, whoever wants to jump in. I mean, what's that like knowing that all eyes are on you? You guys have all certainly been there before at the next level with, state championship games and region games and that sort of thing, but club soccer as well. What's that like, knowing all eyes are on you?
It was such a long process for me, and one mistake on the field in a huge game can cost you. The coach can look at you in a different way, and you have to play your best every time, and it is very stressful, like Kat said. But in the end, I'm happy with my decision, and I'm sure Kat and Lauren are too. And it was worth it in the end with all the hard work.
Absolutely worth it for the Lake Braddock Girls State Championship Soccer Team. Back-to-back titles here. I'm BJ Kubrulis alongside of John Marcario, Kat Weiler, Lauren Fleming, and Katie Dye of the Lake Braddock Bruins State Championship Girls Soccer Team. Back-to-back titles. Congratulations to you guys. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. We're going to be looking for your guys' names in the papers. And in the coming years, keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll see you back on the sidelines watching some girls soccer games in the future.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Welcome back to the Fairfax Sports Report here on the Fairfax Sports Network. We want to thank the Lake Braddock girls for joining us, the state champions 2 times in a row for girls soccer, the Lake Braddock Bruins. And I'm BJ Kubrulis alongside of Dave Bushenfeld of the Fairfax County Times. And speaking of state champions, not back-to-back, guys. You'll be working on that next year. We're already going to put the pressure on you a little bit. But for the first time in the history of the program, the Jefferson Boys Soccer Program wins the state championship. We're going to talk all about it. We've got Coach Sean Burke here to the left of Dave, Justin Johnson in the middle, and James Ramadan on the end. We want to thank you guys, first of all, for joining us. I'm sure it's been a heck of a week. All right, I've got to throw this out there. We were just talking about this. Did you guys know that this was coming? Were you the only 3 of anyone in Northern Virginia that knew that this was coming for the Jefferson Boys Soccer Program?
I don't think we had any idea this was going to happen. I think we just hoped to get a good spot in districts and work our way to regionals. And I think we would have gone a few games in regionals. We would have felt great about it. But I think as things started to evolve, we started to think a little bit more about it. So it was sort of a slow process.
All right, speaking of the slow process, we want to show the folks at home what it took just to get through the regular season, just to get to this point. And it's backwards there, starting from the bottom up. West Potomac, the first game, Falls Church. You guys had 5 ties. A state champion with 5 ties. What's going on there? That's got to be some sort of nugget there that I'm not sure if any state champions had 5 ties. But at what point, guys, when you look at that schedule, you see a 3-1 loss to Westfield, a team that you guys came back against and rectified later in the postseason. At what point did you guys maybe think that maybe we've got something special going on here? Justin, if you want to take that.
I'd say the turning point was Langley. We got, I think, one of our center back, Will Beckman, who ended up playing great this season, got red carded about 20 minutes left into the, I think in the second half. And so we were down a man, and we came back, and we scored 2 goals on him to win. I think ended up winning 3-2. I think that was the turning point of the season that showed what we were really capable of. And from that point on, momentum picked up. So.
Now, guys, one of the reasons nobody really saw this coming, last year you finished below 500, missed the region tournament. I know Coach was talking a lot about the 6:30 practices you guys had. What was the key to turning this all around?
I think the key this season was attitude. I think a lot more people this year really believed that with the proper attitude, we could get more accomplished, not necessarily a state title, but at least a deep run into regionals. So that was definitely our goal, and we set new goals along the way as we accomplished our old ones.
Now, I think one of the words you used to me was underappreciated. That's the way you felt the team was. Did you see the kids kind of playing with a chip on their shoulder throughout the season, knowing that people were kind of disrespecting them a little bit?
Yeah, I think when we had the district selections come out, we didn't do too well. Regional selections came out. There were a few seniors, I think, took it personally. And they were really upset about it, and I think they wanted to go out there and prove that we belong to be discussed with the Lake Braddocks and the Westfields and the Robinsons. And I think it really carried us through, especially when we had maybe a slow start to a game. The boys really dug in deep.
And you talk about getting into those conversations with some of the big dogs, and what it takes is to knock off the big dogs. And speaking of, we're going to show the folks at home what exactly the Jefferson Colonials did in the playoffs. Let's show the folks at home exactly what you guys were able to do. A heck of a streak, all W's there in the results, and that's what Coach Sean Burks likes to see, the W's. Liberty District Finals. Nice. McLean, you guys knocked off McLean. Let's start there. We'll go back to this in just a minute. But McLean's not a joke of a team. They're a team in the Liberty District that's done well, that has, I don't want to say has dominated because it's been Langley's district for quite some time, but this year, Torrey Byro, a couple of good players for the Highlanders. At that point, what were you thinking, Coach? All right, we just won the district championship. What's next?
Yeah, well, I thought we had a good chance if we could just apply some pressure. They probably have the best goalie in the area, and I figured if we could apply some pressure and get an early goal, and sure enough, we did. And I think we had 2 goals within like 3 minutes and kind of opened up that game a little bit, and then we were able to sit around and do our thing. So I think for us, applying pressure on them and sort of trying to take the game to them really opened things up for us, and it gave the boys a tremendous amount of confidence.
Speaking of confidence, guys, let's show the folks at home quickly in the playoff schedule what you guys were able to do in the region final. All right, you guys are up against a big dog here in Westfield. This is one of the top teams that's been around for quite some time, or since their program has been around. They've been pretty dominant in the Northern Region final there. You guys take a 2-1 victory over Westfield, but after a 4-0 victory over Robinson. At this point, that's when guys like Dave and myself start thinking, all right, maybe we missed the boat on these guys, and maybe they're worth another look. At that point, was that, either one of you guys want to jump in on this, was that the point when you guys started thinking, all right, we've been ignored for too long, and maybe it's time to show these folks just what we're about?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, our first regional game against Loudoun Valley, it was a battle to the end. James ended up scoring, I think, in the 4th overtime period. It wasn't the prettiest game to say the least, but it was hard fought. We came back again, and then going into Robinson, we were definitely the underdogs, and I mean, we steamrolled them 4-0. I mean, Harry Beto had 4 goals, so I mean, I think that kind of set the attitude of what we could really accomplish. And then we went into Westfield with some confidence, and I think they still underestimated us.
How badly did you guys want to face Westfield? They're the one loss on your record this season. How bad did you want to stick it to them in the finals there?
Oh, I wanted them really bad. I was telling my teammate Connor Rusomano that I predicted us and them in the finals. As soon as the regional bracket came out, I wanted them again. I was like, they're going to win, we're going to win, and we're going to beat them.
Mr. Clutch, as they call him in the locker room, we just found out. Mr. Clutch making the clutch prediction. Let's show the folks one more time that playoff schedule, and let's show everyone at home exactly what you guys did. One of the top-ranked teams in the area. First of all, you guys got through Forest Park, then Cox, and then you knock off the big dog in Osborne Park. And this, Coach, when you've had a chance now to kind of take a step back and think about exactly what you guys did, the way that you ended the season and what you were able to accomplish, in the soccer community, does this go down as one of the biggest upsets in the history of the tournament, or are you guys a team that was stronger than people thought you might have been?
I think we're stronger than people, think that we were. I think when you look at when you pulled the graphic, you look at all the teams we beat and 13 straight wins, it can't be much of an upset. I mean, they beat Forest Park 1-0. We scored 3 times on Forest Park. So when you look at it from a distance, you figured if we can get a goal, we can make things interesting. And if we can kind of seal up the lanes on Osborne Park and force them to shoot from distance and let Will Beckman clean things up, I thought we'd have a chance. And I think, too, the pressure was Osborne Park. They've been there twice before. And I think the boys really used that to their advantage, really coming out with nothing to lose and to play for it all.
I believe you said after the game, man for man, Osborne Park was just frightening, the skill level that I have. What was your plan of attack against those guys in the final?
Well, we wanted to get Harry back into the midfield to get him away from Denuzio, I believe it is. They're a strong center back because they were strong. They wanted to get the ball out wide and try to isolate them and try to get the ball in behind them and draw them out a little bit. It didn't work as well as we would have liked, and then we went back with Harry back up top. And when you have a player like Harry, you just let him create.
When you guys saw that blast, I mean, that was a blast from where he hit that ball. What did you think? Did you think this one's going over the top, or did you think that was that was going in? I mean, it didn't look like that from where we were sitting. On the field, you get a different perspective. He knocked the hell out of that ball.
Oh yeah, he did. I was probably 6 yards behind him, screaming at him to pass it to him because I wanted the shot. But I mean, it was similar to the goal he had against Forest Park, and Harry does that in practice all the time. Kind of outside of the foot, he looks like he rips it, which he does, but there's also placement on it. That's what he was going for. So,
speaking of going for stuff, you guys have been going for this state championship all year, but let's show the folks at home exactly who did what on the team. Harry, obviously a guy that everybody knows can score, has made a name for himself now, a couple of multiple goal games. But Justin, there you are right at the top of the list for assists. Andrew Dunphy with 6. And I'm going to mess his name up. Peter Bojo, or is it?
Boyo.
Boyo there with 5 assists. And then Harry Bedeau, 21 goals. There's James with 14. Alex Carney, 4 goals. Justin Johnson there. Justin doing it all there, assists and goals. And Ariel Brown, 9 shutouts in goal. And goalkeepers, coach, often don't get enough credit. As you look back there, 17, 1 and 5, 50 goals forced, 19 goals allowed. We've got you at 1.3 goals per game as a margin. That's just some number crunching on our part. But goalies don't often get the love that they deserve. 9 shutouts this year, and you're on an island all by yourself in goal, too. If you let one by, you're all by yourself.
Yeah.
That's your fault. How strong has he been for you this year?
He's been great. I mean, he's a little unorthodox in some of the ways he approaches shot stopping, but at the end of the day, he's always in the right position, and he always makes great saves. And if you look at the newspaper articles of the year, they'd always get these pictures of him flying Superman, like across the goal line, punching it out at Stonebridge or whatnot, making the save. And he does a good job of getting himself in the right position at the right time. And he does an awesome job in terms of commanding the box, too, when the ball's played in. And it doesn't hurt that he has these guys in front of him. Our midfield and defenders really worked well to give Ari a good look at things.
How nervous were you guys getting at the end of that state final? I mean, I think Osborne Park had 3 corner kicks in a row, but Ari was back there making all the saves for you guys. How nerve-wracking was that for you?
That was very nerve-wracking. Like with 2 minutes left, like we had 3 players falling into our own goal, and I was like, But I mean, we just held. That's all we had to do. Ari did a great job keeping us organized. I told him to just keep talking because he can see the whole field. He did a great job. Stepped up.
All right, I want to change gears here just for a minute. Obviously, a spectacular what you guys have been able to do. State championship, a team that really came out of nowhere. You guys may have known. You may have been the only 20-some people that might have known that was coming. But yeah, I mean, really, it goes down in the history of the Northern Region as one of the best teams to come through now. And you guys have really solidified your place in the Northern Region's history and now state as well. I guess on the flip side of that, you guys are a team from a school where you've got a lot of homework to do every day. You guys are expected to be 4.0 grade point average students. You guys have a lot more than the average student. How much does that play into you guys' ability to practice and play as a team and be there for each other and that sort of stuff? What more goes into it than just being an average soccer player at another school?
I mean, it is more. We have a heavier workload, and I think that does affect our soccer. We practice in the morning. In some ways, that was easier for some of the kids when they had tests the next day. They could study when they got home right away because we have kids who could be coming from 40 miles away. You have practice after school. We get out late. We start practice 4:30. You're going till 6. Get home. That's traffic. Some kids might not be getting home till 8, and that's something that you have to take into consideration. And for the most part, we handle our workload. I mean, we know how to get our work done, and I think that shows on the soccer field too.
Coach, he was just touching on it. You got kids coming from all over the place up in Northern Virginia. You said it wasn't too difficult, though, to get them to play as a team. What was it like for you to try to get them to play?
Well, I think with good senior leadership by these 2 young gentlemen here, they brought it together. They made everyone realize how important it was. And the nice thing about TJ is that, when they come here as 9th graders, it's almost like a college experience. They have to make new friends. So they bond in different ways, like old middle school stereotypes are stripped away. And in some way, these guys are closer than I think a lot of high schoolers are. And we have one common lunch period at TJ, so we met every day for lunch. And we watched film, we talked about things, we did X's and O's. And other schools have 3 and 4 lunches, so the kids can't meet. So in some ways, we were able to build some solidarity I think you couldn't get at a base school. So in some ways, it worked to our advantage.
Last question for each of you guys before we let you go here. I'm going to start down on the end there with Mr. Clutch. What's the thing you'll remember most about this season?
Scoring 2 golden goals to have the whole team run out and tackle me. That was
Same question.
Having the fans storm the field our last 5 games. I mean, it was absolutely amazing when we have 200, 300, 400 kids in the stands in a sea of red all coming down on the field.
Coach, last word.
I think I'll remember the last huddle we had just off of half field after we'd done the award ceremony all together, just yelling and screaming, and I can't repeat what I said, but I don't think I'll ever forget that moment of sort of just pure ecstasy and celebration.
All right, guys. Ecstasy and celebration more when we come back. For more here on the Fairfax Sports Report, we want to thank the Jefferson Boys, the state champion Jefferson Boys soccer team, for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Best of luck to you guys. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome back to the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubaroulis, and the sports reporters just keep multiplying here, guys. We've got Dave Bushenfeld, Paul Frummelt, and John Marcario, that side of the table from the Connection newspapers, and we've got the Fairfax County Times right here to my left. And I'm BJ Kubaroulis of the Fairfax Sports Network. Guys, it has been, first of all, it has been an incredible season. It's been an incredible year. This is our final episode of this high school season. We're going to be coming back throughout the summer sporadically with many episodes of this show, but over the next 20 minutes, we're going to reminisce a little bit about the spring season. We're going to wrap up the final seasons of spring and who did what. We're going to tell the folks at home how far people got. But before we get there, we have an award that we give out every single week here on this show. It's called the Fairfax Sports Network's Athlete of the Week. Paul Frummel, take it away.
Well, Brian Smith from a team that most thought would be in the state finals this year, Madison. Smith was the Liberty District Player of the Year, and he has committed to play at George Mason University. Brian Smith, the star third baseman for the Madison Warhawks.
Brian Smith is a guy that I've talked to Coach Mark Pudge Jorman over at Madison about quite a bit, and it seems like we just had the Lake Braddock girls soccer team on here. We were talking about this. Everybody from their team essentially it seemed like was going to play at the Division I level. Well, pretty much 8 out of the 9, I believe, players that started are playing Division I baseball next year. Talk about a baseball factory out of here in Vienna. Speaking of another baseball factory out of Vienna, Dave, you got a little bit of news about an Oakton baseball player. Share that nugget with the folks at home.
Well, as most people know, Brandon Padula missed most of the season. He broke a bone in his wrist, missed the entire regular season, made a comeback in the postseason, but it turns out that the bone wasn't actually healed. He just had surgery on it last Friday. He was just playing through the pain even though it wasn't fully healed. They're hoping that he should be ready to go. He's going to West Virginia next year. They're hoping by August he should be 100%, get ready to play for the Mountaineers.
All right, you talk about collegiate athletes from the northern region, many of them off doing great things at the college level, but every now and then there's something that hits the wires that we just can't ignore. 2 Robinson lacrosse players, former Robinson lacrosse players, hit the news in a way that maybe they shouldn't have this week. Dave, tell the viewers at home exactly what happened and who they were, what was the incident.
2 former Robinson lacrosse players. Adam Fosnack, who many will know, he was the face-off specialist for the University of Virginia this past year. And then Nicholas Hermendorfer, who plays up at Princeton. They were both arrested up in New Jersey for aggravated assault after assaulting someone at a Princeton party. Just looking at a report in the Daily Progress from down in Charlottesville. The victim had a broken cheekbone, broken nose, and a fractured orbital socket. Still some sketchy details, but it seems like this kid was talking to a female, and they started arguing, and punches were thrown, and being lacrosse players, they're pretty strong guys, and did some damage to the guy. So.
Well, and you talk about lacrosse in this area finally taking off. We had a great lacrosse show last week. Coach Justin Fitzgerald, David Leidy, and Matt Kugler joined us on the show. They just won the state championship back-to-back for the Robinson program. And here's 2 kids from former Robinson lacrosse players off and hit the news in kind of a negative way. And Paul, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. What does that do for the sport of lacrosse, which has already been stained to a certain level by the Duke thing that happened, whether you believe that happened or not, even though the charges were dropped? There's some people that will never forget and will never believe that incident did not happen. Again, when this happens with a program, especially like UVA, one of the best not only in the state, but in the entire sport at the NCAA level. What does that do to the sport?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that all this, what is alleged, nothing has been definitely proven. But yeah, you see with lacrosse players, as you saw with the Duke case, is it seems like people have a bad image of lacrosse players. They think the preppy, privileged kids playing with their sticks, but it's really, I mean, and that hurts when someone like these kids get accused of something like this.
John, I want you to weigh in real quick. Sports reporters, as we are, we often hold people accountable for their actions. And at the high school level, kids make mistakes. People make mistakes, and they often get that second chance here, and things aren't often broadcast in the media when kids make mistakes at the high school level. But at the college level, there's a certain level of accountability, John. Where do you think these guys, and how do you think they should be reprimanded by their school?
Well, that's a great word, accountability, right there. I mean, there's many graduations going on right now. Hopefully, commencement speakers will talk about once you graduate, you're not your little high school walls anymore. You're in the real world now. Now, Paul used a great word. All those charges have been alleged so far, so everything could be dropped. You never know. But once you step out of those high school walls, everything is fair game. You are now truly an adult, and your actions, good or bad, are going to either make the press or not make the press, and it's your decision to figure out which path you want to take.
All right, speaking of stepping out of the high school walls and choosing your path, a lot of gentlemen, and often in this time of year, in the spring, right, and near the state tournament, we start hearing about the amateur baseball draft, Major League Baseball. We get some kids that go to the next level from this area all the time, right out of high school. Dave Bushenfeld, who's gone where from this area?
Yep, on a little happier note, we have Brandon Geyer, former Herndon baseball player. He was selected in the 5th round, 157th overall by the Chicago Cubs. Jason Bohr, the catcher from Westfield, just graduated, I believe, from George Mason. He was selected in the 23rd round by the Cincinnati Reds. He'll be playing out in Montana, I believe. An outfielder, Mike Bianucci from Woodson, was selected by the Angels also in the 23rd round. Pitcher Paul Clemens, formerly from Robinson, was selected by the Giants in the 36th round. And also selected by the Giants in the 38th round was J.J. Panel, who pitched at O'Connell. He's a Springfield native and also pitched at George Mason University.
All right, speaking of being a pitcher and having some big shoes to fill, your last name is Clemens. That's difficult, guys. All right, speaking of baseball, though, and before we get there, John, the state tournament that we just got back from down in Newport News, all 4 of us were there. We had a great time, great company you guys are. I'm getting sick of seeing you, by the way. But the state tournament, we won't have to travel that much further for it anymore. Tell us the scoop there, old Scoops. What you got the scoop on it.
Absolutely not. I reported it last week. Westfield will now be hosting the Spring Jubilee starting in 2008 and running till 2010. They become the first school in Fairfax County to host a state tournament. That's a very prestigious thing. Tennis still remains in limbo, though. Their bid did not include singles, so singles may still be down at Huntington Park at Newport News. Doubles more than likely will remain down at Newport News. The track that's also held down in the Todd Jones Stadium right near Christopher Newport University, it's going to remain there for the foreseeable future, but every other Spring Jubilee activity going to be right up here at Bulldog Nation at Westfield.
And so now the only reason to be at Christopher Newport University is if you go to college there, like Paul Frummel did, and pretty much 4 kids go there now. Is that how big the enrollment is?
It's a wonderful college.
It really is, and I have to say, I have to compliment the folks down there. That is an absolutely beautiful school. What they've done with it, I'm from that area, and I know the process, that long it's been in coming along. It looks absolutely gorgeous.
You're jealous.
And
You're
I
jealous
actually,
that you did
you
not
know
go
what?
there.
Though once you went to the Final Four with George Mason, it's kind of hard. I mean, once you go to the Final Four, everything else is just kind of cake. All right, guys, speaking of tournaments and how far you can get, the Oakton baseball team, how far can they get? How far did they get? Let's show the folks at home exactly how far the Oakton baseball team went, as well as those South County Stallions. Look at those state baseball scores, guys. Dave, take it away. Forest Park, 5-2, takes out Oakton in the first round.
Yeah, a bit of a shocker there. I thought Oakton would make it back. I was hoping to write the story of redemption. Everybody knows the story of last year's heartbreaking defeat in the state finals, but they were knocked out. I believe the Forest Park pitcher threw a 5-hitter against them, just really dominating on the mound. But it was a little earlier than I expected Oakton to bow out of the tournament.
Some more quarterfinal action, John. South County takes the 3-1 victory over Colonial Forge. That's a team that maybe if we had looked at them at the beginning of the season, I don't know if people would have thought South County would have been the last team standing, although on this show we did talk about their hefty pitching rotation. Talk a little bit about the Stallions and what they were able to do this year.
They just had an amazing run. You see there they lost to Deep Run in the semi, 7-6. In that game, Jesse Beal, who I'm very high on, had a very bad bad third inning. He took a 5-0 lead into the third inning, struck out the first batter, then the next 8 batters proceeded to get on base. Deep Run would score 6 runs, highlighted by a grand slam. South County would end up tying the game in the 4th, only to fall down 7-6 again in the 5th. That's their final score. They just had mental errors throughout the game. They just could not get over that hump. I talked to Mike Graham, their senior, who's going to be going to VCU. He just said when they were up 5-0, Jesse pitching, he thought they had it. He couldn't put into words what happened for the rest of the game, but still very, very proud team at the end of that game. Head coach Mark Luther was extremely happy that his team advanced to that far, was the last team standing. The seniors definitely thrilled that people now know where South County is. Second-year school out of Lorton, outlasted Oakton, outlasted Madison, didn't have the best pitching staff out there, didn't have the best hitters out there, but they were the most consistent team, and they were the last team standing. Still, very good run for them.
All right, James River wins the tournament, 25-2. They finished the season, a hefty record there for James River. VHSL AAA softball, Robinson takes out Halifax, Dave, in the first round, 8-5. And then you see that they dropped in the semis, actually. We've got that score backwards, but Hanover actually beat Robinson 4-2 in the semifinals. Talk a little bit about what Robinson was able to accomplish this year.
They're a great team. Got a lot of kids that can hit the ball. I can't remember, what's the name of the freshman that hit all the home runs?
Marcy Bowden.
Marcy Bowden.
Yep. I mean, they got bats all throughout the lineup. I know John was at their game. He could probably talk a little more about what they were able to do there.
John, 2 words to describe Dorian Shaw.
Wow, simply amazing. And I say simply amazing. It's just completely impossible to describe her, what she means to her teammates and how important she is on the field. I mean, everybody knows who she is, and yet people still pitch to her. Her teammates not only look up to her, but they consider her just an amazing leader, an amazing person aside from off the field. I mean, in that game against Hanover, their 4-2 loss, they fell behind early. Kelsey McIntosh struggled a little bit in a couple of innings, but overall pitched a great game for her complete game. The senior, she went out with a solid game. They were able to cut it to 4-2 in the 6th inning. They had runners at second and third with 1 out. Couldn't get any more runners pushed across. Hanover's pitcher was just having a very effective game with their slider. Unfortunately, the game was marred by what many perceived was, including the coaching staffs on both sides, was an inconsistent strike zone by the umpire. He would be calling some strikes 2 and 3 feet outside. Other times he wouldn't be calling them. That seemed to rattle.
Strike 2 and 3 feet outside.
It was
that bad.
It was that bad.
Wow.
It was that bad.
That's pretty fantastic.
Robinson's head coach said that they'd have to adjust their stance, and then 1 inning later they'd have to completely readjust it again based on the strike zone.
I don't even know how they were able to stand in the batter's box. It was 2 and 3
going
feet
behind them.
outside. That's pretty fantastic. Speaking of fantastic, Paul, Stonebridge is a team that was there last year, and they've been there, it seems like, even when they were in AA. They're always there. They lost a lot last year from that team, and to get back to that level into the quarterfinals where they dropped 3-2 to Osborne. Talk a little bit about those Bulldogs.
Well, Stonebridge was clearly not the team that went to the state finals last year. They lost Sam Ingersoll, their star shortstop. They lost Brianna Harris, their dominating pitcher of the year in the state. And it's a real tribute to Coach Stephanie Tidwell that these Bulldogs actually made it to the finals of the region, made it to the state tournament, losing in the state quarterfinals, but it's still almost a diminished team from the one that was last year, but almost got the same glory.
All right, speaking of glory, there's a team from Loudon that you're about to hear about in the Loudon Report. Paul Frummeld every week brings you one of the most gorgeous Loudon reports you might ever see, from South Riding to Sterling, from Ashburn to Sterling.
Maybe Leesburg?
Maybe Leesburg. Paul, take it away on the Loudon Report.
All right, guys, so there was 2 big state winners in Loudoun County this year in the spring. And the first and foremost, it was the Broad Run softball team having a 29-0 perfect season with Caitlin Delahaba, their star junior pitcher, striking out 400 batters. Now let's say that again. Striking out 400 batters this year. You can see in 2007 a 28-0 record for Delahaba. In 2006, she struck out 336 with a 23-1 record. We thought 2006 was great. 2007, 400 batters. Now you see the history that Coach Ed Steele has with Broad Run. In '94, they were the state runner-up. In 2000, they won the whole thing. In 2002, runner-up again, and now in 2007, the Broad Run Spartans win the state tournament. Now, in the finals, Broad Run collected 11 hits with an 8-0 victory over New Kent in the finals. Delahaba had 95 strikeouts in the postseason alone. She was the Gatorade Softball Player of the Year for Virginia. Now, the offense, too, everybody talks about Caitlin Delahaba and her pitching. The Broad Run offense scored 279 runs this year in the 29 games they played. That's almost 10 runs per game. But not to be outdone, the Parkview girls won the AA state track meet. Now, they're the first Loudoun track and field team to win in over 3 decades. So that's a great accomplishment for the Parkview girls. Now, junior Natalie Bard, the great discus and shot put thrower for the Patriots, won both events at the state meet. Now, Dominion's Jennifer Weatherly also had a great state meet. Great state meet, winning the 100 and 200 meters and finished third in the 400 meters. And the Heritage 4x400 relay team of Emma McLaughlin, Jade Jimes, Candace Brown, and Devin Anderson Farmer also won a state title. And that is, I'm getting a little dry here. That is your Loudoun report.
He's just getting all choked up
I know.
because it's the end of the year. You know, I don't get a chance to talk to these kids anymore. But I did have a chance to talk to Natalie Baird from Parkview and what they accomplished in their coach's last season, by the way. He is leaving the coaching profession after this year for family reasons, wants to spend more time with his family. There was only one senior that scored a point for Parkview in that state AA championship track and field meet. Baird threw the discus 7 feet more than she threw it last year. And last year she broke the state record. So she just broke her own state record by 7 feet. They scored 51 points, which was 1 point better than Loudoun Valley scored in 1976. And it was the last time that a team from Loudoun won the AA state tournament. So statistically speaking, their 51-point performance, they are the best team in the history of Loudoun County at the state level, and they're all juniors except one girl. They won, I don't know exactly how many events, but it was pretty dominating what they were able to do. They blew out their second place competitor, Charlottesville, by more than 16 points. That was the second closest person.
And they dominated with Bard and others in the field. And they have a great throwing coach, great throwers and shot putters. And I believe they scored close to 40 points in just the field events.
Absolutely. And that is a dominating thing. I think we'll see that team come right back next year and maybe do some similar things, if not repeat. Speaking of repeating, John Marcario, something you will see every single episode here on the Fairfax Sports Report. It's madness. And what we mean by madness is often in the office, at times we'd hear John talking about crazy things he'd just throw off the wall and see if they'd stick. And so we thought we'd mold it into a segment of this show. And sometimes there is a little bit of method to Marcario's madness. John, Marcario's madness, take it away.
Schools need to be more considerate when setting a date for their prom. Schools such as Thomas Jefferson, Lake Braddock, and Oakton, just to name a few, need not be having their prom so late in the year, such as late April or early June. I understand the argument that setting the prom back so late is a little carrot you can use in front of the kids in case they do something bad. But the fact of the matter is, if kids are going to do something bad, they're not going to wait until a couple weeks after prom to do it. The little switch does not go on, and they become little terrors all over the place. Planning prom, or pushing prom back so far, also interferes with sports schedules, with AP testing, with end-of-the-year testing, and a small but important problem to students and parents is planning a summer vacation. When students graduate high school, they are taught that consistency is a good thing to have when you move on in life. It's high time that high schools have a consistent date to have their prom at the end of the year.
All right, and as we promised, it would be madness. That absolutely was madness. But, John, I think you make a good point. I think that, from all the state tournament and games and athletes that we talked to, we'll talk a little bit about tennis. Kristen Palmucci, a junior, was going to prom, and she was in the singles tournament on Friday and had to come back for the doubles tournament on Saturday. Her father drove all night long, and she slept in the car. That is just one of 50 stories about girls, boys trying to get back for their prom dates and make the athletics work. The Lake Braddock girls soccer team, I wrote about it this last week. 11 seniors, 9 of them missed their prom. Coach Liz Pike promised that she'd get them their prom back. They ended up getting about 4 limos and going out this last week and going to make a dance, and they could bring 4 friends and the whole thing. But I think to on a serious note, what you're saying is make it a stagnant date so that it can be something that can be scheduled around, not trying to schedule prom around athletic events. I think that's something that should be looked into, although we'll see what some of the athletic directors have to say about it. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Well, I agree. I think it should be pushed earlier into the year. I think that would help. That would alleviate, maybe make it before the district tournaments start. So any conflict with sports and the prom, they're null and void.
Now, no way are we suggesting you work the schedule around the sports. I mean, that's absolutely absurd. But it's just the later you move things back into the year, there's more things that pile up, especially for the seniors. I mean, everybody knows that graduation takes up a lot of time with planning and figuring out all different kinds of festivities. Then you couple the fact with sports schedules. Then you have testing, as I said. There's just so much stuff going on. There's just really no need for prom to be held any later than early to mid-May, and mid-May at the latest. I mean, it's the end of the year. Nothing's going on during that time period. There's no set schedules. That's a clean time. If you push it back further and further, you're waiting for students to do something bad, and when you wait for the bad students to do something wrong, you're hampering 99% of everybody else at the school, and that's just not a precedent that schools should be setting.
I wouldn't put the percentage that high, young man, of the good students in high school, 99%.
They're like 4 feet away from the good.
All right, Dave.
I know we didn't get a chance to talk to Coach Burke about it when he was on here, but he was none too pleased. About half the seniors on the Jefferson boys team left after their semifinal game on Friday to go back for the prom. Got back to Newport News at about 3 a.m. on Saturday, only had a few hours to sleep before getting up. I just didn't feel it was fair to the rest of the team that some of the most important players were going to be a little bit overtired for the state championship game the next day.
That's one thing. They did get back at 3. They had, I guess, 6-7 hours of sleep. But you see, Henry Beto, the kid that had the game-winning goal, went to the prom. So, I mean, they didn't really, yes, he was taking a chance, and had it ended up differently, we could be talking about a different thing. But he went to the prom and performed well, won the not won the game, but scored the game-winning goal for his team. So it worked out well. That's what I'm saying.
I think even if they had lost, I don't think anybody would have attributed it to any prom or anything like that. I mean, that's a difficult decision to have to make between maybe the greatest athletic moment of your life and maybe one of the best social moments of your life. And sometimes that sounds easy for us knuckleheads to make because, if we were playing in a state championship soccer game, we'd probably want to be there. All right, speaking of being there, you can be there. You can get all the action on the website, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. We're on the web. Go read about Paul Frummelt in his bio. Beautiful pictures of John Marcario. CCI Screen Printing for all your screen printing needs at 703-978-0257. And for the endless summer of lacrosse, that is one of our special teammates. So what do we do with our special teammates? We specially thank our specialty teammates. www.tripleedgelax.com. Big Dennis Stewart, the man of the year, Triple Edge Lacrosse.
Summer does not end.
Absolutely. The summer doesn't end when you play lacrosse.
Exactly.
So I'm going to go pick up a lacrosse stick and start slinging it off the garage. We want to thank you folks at home for joining us week in and week out this season for all the sports coverage that we could bring you. Join us every single week over the summer as we bring you new and fantastic stories of other athletes that may not be high schoolers. And when we come back in the fall, it's football, gentlemen. And that's when the fun starts. I want to thank you guys for a fantastic year and for everyone who works on this show, including our crew members, our directors, Pete Nasisco, Matt Lollick, Jim Rispress, Brian Nern. I'm missing a bunch of people, but I just want to thank everybody for doing a bang-up job this year and continuing to bring the folks of Fairfax County and the neighboring counties excellent work here on the Fairfax Sports Network. And a special thanks to Big Craig Sturbutzel, always keeping it real with that camera on the sidelines. We love you, Stur, and keep up the good work. Like we said, join us over the summer, guys. Thanks for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Network.